a 7-year-old might know that something happened, but they may not know the details. Whereas, a 14-year-old would be curious to know what happened, what was the intention, am I going to be safe, is there someone that's going to walk into my school? So it's always a good idea to have an open conversation and see how much the child knows. And ask them what they know and let them ask questions, right? So address it based on what they know and what they want to know. And you want to be as honest as possible. So you don't want to give them because you don't want your child growing up thinking, they're going to be shocked when the next time they go to school. But at the same time, you want them to be cautious, right? The one thing that happens quite frequently is when a shooting incident happens, especially with all these news channels, it's always playing in the loop. You see these gory images sometimes, or you see those videos playing over and over again. Because especially Romba Chinna Pasanga, they don't understand the concept of time. So if they see it over and over again, it can be re-traumatizing them. Or they might think that it's happening over and over again, right? So sometimes the best thing to do is to just turn off the TV. You cannot completely shut it out, but you don't have to keep exposing them. So I guess I've answered the question. It depends on the child, how much they know, how much they want to know. When they ask questions, honestly, answer them. And make sure they understand that, they have to be cautious, but the world is still a fairly safe place. Some pasanga they be very anxious, they may be afraid to sleep. Sometimes you can see visible signs of anxiety. They don't want to go to school, or they are constantly fearful that something is going to happen to me if I go to school. So when a child is showing a lot of signs of anxiety, change in sleep, being fearful, crying all the time, moody, bedwetting, if there is a change in their behavior from baseline, then you want to take it a little bit more seriously. Then you may want to see a professional. A lot of times, with time it gets better. Reassurance is all that they need.
Do we have a therapy for child specifically? For example, these kind of violence, like gun violence is different, but let's just say she is being abused in the public. How do you make that for her to come and tell us?
Bullying பத்தி பேசுறீங்களா பசங்க பண்ற bullying? And that's a very good question.
Oh, you want to know?
If something is happening in the school, somebody is bullying her, somebody is touching her in an inappropriate way, we want her to first tell us. We don't know unless she comes and tells us, right? So how do you make that?
I think it starts with making sure you educate your child all along. You don't want to wait till the incident to happen. So, again, it's based on the child's age and development and maturity level. You always want to train your child to be able to come and tell you. They may not necessarily know what is the situation where they should and shouldn't. But if something doesn't feel right, somebody is making me feel bad, it doesn't have to be, they may not know whether it qualifies as abuse or not. But you have to have an open dialogue. Especially when it comes to sexual abuse, you need to teach your child, right? I think in our culture, especially the way we were raised, that was not something that we were all advised to do. Whereas in this country, the awareness is growing even in India, but you need to teach the child in their own language what's good touch, what's bad touch, what would be something they need to come and tell a parent, whether they need to tell a parent or a teacher, because sometimes you don't want the child to wait for till they come home. They need to go tell the teacher right away. So teaching them in their own words how to express it. If something doesn't feel right, they need to speak up. So you need to train the child to do that. But when it comes, I think your next question was are there people trained to do that kind of things with children? There's the whole world of child psychiatry. I'm a child psychiatrist, so there's psychiatrists, and then you go through training to be a child psychiatrist. Ademari, there are therapists, but you learn to work with children. When our children don't know how to say things, right? So there's a whole gamut of therapy you can do. For very young kids, we see kids that are 3 and 2 that are abused, who've been left not fed. So even non-verbal kids. So we do play therapy, sand therapy, so So, there are different types of therapies to let them open up because children express their emotions through play. As the older they get, it's more verbal. So it depends on the developmental age of the child.
So I was asking just like this session that we have, can we do some sessions for the kids specifically as a group session?
Yeah, I think that's what, the group, that's the intention of, Maglir Mattum, and I think Tamasandam also did a while ago, we did on like depression and things like that. Yes, of course, yeah.
Anyone would like to ask questions? Thank you, Lydia. So, my question is if the kid is in depression or if they have any anxiety, and we could really see some difference on their activities. They seem to be raising their voice. They are not much cooperative and they are not sleeping. All these things we are able to see that. With that, trying to understand that okay, he may be in some stress or some anxiety. But how do I understand what exactly is the problem? Because if I ask as Nafisa said, kids are not able to tell exactly. So even if you ask questions repeatedly, they are frustrated. So how do you handle kid in this situation?
Again, it depends on the child. Some children will tell you they are, but because sadness, nervousness are normal human emotions. So how do you decide this is normal stress-related anxiety or if it's something more severe where you have to seek professional help? So I think it's based on the intensity and how long. So even that's what makes sadness is everything that all of us feel, but depression is sadness that is pretty intense and stays on, right? So if you notice mood changes, I think what's important is how is it different from their baseline, right? So most parents, who are very involved in their child's lives know that this is the temperament of the child, this is their predominant mood. And then especially during puberty and things like that, you're going to see a lot of changes. But if that change continues and it gets intense, they can be moody, they may be sad for a few hours, but if you find them being sad most of the time, or they're giving up on things that they used to do, they're no longer motivated, they're kind of drifting away from people that they used to enjoy hanging out with. So it's the intensity of their emotions and how long, intensity and duration matters, right? So some weeks you might find them like that and then they're back to normal. That's okay. But even if it's going up and down, the severity is so high, then you change in sleep patterns, change in eating patterns, sudden change in friends, bizarre behaviors, suddenly they are, they're being more secretive. A child who's very open suddenly starts hiding things from their parents. So it can be difficult because again, some of these things are normal part of teenage and things like that, but it's how intense it is, how long it's going on for, how much it is affecting them, as a student, as a child in the home. Because if their grade starts dropping, if they're drifting away from friends, other friends are withdrawing from them, those are some clues.
Right.
I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, but still somehow
So when in doubt, you probably need to seek professional help or talk to the teachers. Be in touch with their friends. Sometimes if you think something's wrong, talk to the friends, talk to the teachers. But if you still feel that's why it's important to know, have access to their phones. You need to know what they're posting, you need to know their activity because most of our children live online. So, but when in doubt, if you feel that they're acting in a way that is making you be afraid for their safety or they're completely changing their personalities, I think it's good to start off with having them evaluated with a pediatrician or go to a psychiatrist or a therapist.
Thank you.
The next question we have here is, how yelling affects kids?
I would like to say I yell at my kids too. I think Yelling, it depends. Not yelling, all of us yell. So when we get angry, we raise our voice, right? I think it's a way we express our anger. So I think in a way it helps the person that is, I wouldn't say it helps. It's almost like a adult tantrum, right? When we yell, we are angry, we feel powerless, and it diffuses the buildup of anger that we have. It's really not influencing the situation in a proper way at all, right? So the way it affects is, again, it depends on the child. There are some kids who have a thick skin, they keep going away. But then you have very anxious kids, a child with a very low self-esteem, a child who's dealing with bullying at school, or a child who is very self-conscious about their appearance. So temperament, like all of us are born with a certain temperament or character. Some people internalize things, right? Whatever other people say, they'll be very sensitive to criticism. So those are children that will get very badly affected by a parent yelling, right? If you have a tendency to be a very anxious person, if you internalize things, if you are very sensitive to criticism, they feel like they've done something wrong. They feel like they're not good enough. They may think that you don't love them. So it affects their self-esteem. And then what they can do is, sometimes they can really internalize, sometimes they can end up with depression, or they get very anxious, or the child is always kind of walking on eggshells. I don't want to make my parent angry. I'm not good enough. So sometimes those early childhood experiences affects who you become, right? If a child is constantly living in fear of upsetting their parent, or if the mother or the father is constantly yelling or saying derogatory things about the child, then they think that I'm not good enough. So they may give up from trying things that they want to do. Or what can happen to children is, see, the younger the child learns, experiences the world through the mother and father's eyes. It doesn't have to be the mother or father, the primary caregivers. It can be whoever raises them as a child. Because a child, that's their world, right? If they're seeing it, if they're constantly in that yelling, kind of a high stress environment, they may feel that all authority figures are angry people. They're going to be upset with me. So they'll be very afraid to speak up in public places. They may not ask the teacher if they need help. So they're always in fear that they're going to be upset. It doesn't mean that every child is going to become like that. Again, it depends on the child. But I think when it comes to disciplining, the goal is we want to teach the child not to do something or do something. You want to either develop positive behaviors or, take away negative behaviors. So if the goal is to discipline the child or teach the child something, yelling really doesn't do that. It takes away the message. Because the child may not, the message that your intention may be right, the child doesn't get the message because what they remember is, I did something wrong, I made my parent angry. Or what it also teaches them is to also react with anger sometimes. Because not all children internalize this. Many kids will externalize it. And what we model is what they take. So that becomes the way they learn to deal with their frustration too. So it really is not helpful for the parent or the child.
Yes, I have a similar situation at my house right now. How do I handle it? When I stop yelling at them, morning when they are leaving to school, everyone would have faced that. They don't want to, they'll stand like that. Now, they don't want to get ready. Laziness, basically, the laziness. And I had a recent conference with my daughter's teacher, and she was not affected too much, but looks like when she entered the class, when she was putting all the things in her cubby. The classes has started already, so she was trying to listen to the class, but she leaves her stuff there. She doesn't take it to her seat. So that's when I understood that there's something disturbing her. So now how do I change it? How do I correct it? When I made the damages from the morning, I made the damage.
I think a good place to start is to sit and talk with her and apologize.
I did that, but is there anything else that I should do?
Let her know. I think it's important. There's no manual for parenting. You just learn. Sometimes we learn by making mistakes. As much as I'm a child psychiatrist and I talk this day in and day out, I know how hard it is to follow, because I think somewhere along the line you get very influenced by the parents that you had, and my father was a very angry man, so my parenting style naturally is to yell. And so I think I completely identify with you. So I think a good place to start is to apologize. Let the child know that what you did was not okay, that you did it, but you're going to change it. Just like what we expect from our children. It's not about just saying sorry and moving on. You want to say sorry, you want to you want to work on ways to not make that mistake again. So as long as the child knows that you are admitting it, so admit your mistake, apologize, validate her emotions. Tell her that I see that, like you were sad, angry, when I saw that. And then she needs to see you making an effort to change it. And there's going to be some slip-ups along the way. There may be another incident where you will probably lose it. So I think identifying the triggers, because I think if we look back for most parents, the triggers are when we're running late. There are certain things that really pushes our buttons. So if you identify the triggers and then make sure you have a plan for those times so you avoid it, or if you or identifying what you go through when you get mad. Like most of us, like we can identify certain cues, like maybe we can start, you start feeling warm, or you start feeling like your neck muscles tightening or whatever. When you find yourself getting to that point, remove yourself from that situation. If you need to go into your bathroom and scream at something else or scream into a pillow, and we say that to the children too. Anger is a normal human emotion. You can't expect not to be angry. But how we choose to express it is what matters. So, identifying what pushes your buttons, removing yourself during those times. Let's say, what's the worst thing that can happen if you don't address it at that time? She's going to go to school late. Let her go to school late. Maybe that will teach her a better lesson.
What happened was, I have twin brothers. Both of them are in a different class. It so happened that both of them wrote something, I don't know, it was some essay or something, or some challenges they want to overcome. Both of them wrote the same thing, that they want to get ready early for the school. So I was so surprised. The teachers, it was two different teachers who gave me the sheets, and it was the same thing. I was so surprised and shocked, of course. I want to correct it now.
So that's the perfect, time to come up with a plan. You three can come up, because all three of you want the same goal. So maybe you can sit together and talk about how are we going to make the morning routine more smooth. Do we need to get up 15 minutes earlier? Is there part of the morning routine you can do the previous night? Or, those kind of things.
Consciously I'm trying to control my temper and everything, but still it doesn't stop there.
I know.
Kids, they continue.
We are all just getting older, we have to underline that. They're all
They're understanding it, but it's still continuing.
It's hard, I know.
They take turns. First for 1 week or 2 weeks it will be one child, another 2 weeks it will be the next child. Okay.
So along those lines, I have a question. Sometimes kids doesn't respond unless I start yelling. The minute I lose my temper, I'm like, yeah, then immediately they listen, they want to do their work. Why is that, and how can we?
We are all animals. We all are, subconsciously we are trained to do certain things, right? So if the way it had happened that, that is the final cue, that means that, severe consequences. So I think subconsciously the children get trained to do things only when certain extremes happen. So I think you have to kind of retrain your child, and it's a slow process.
It's not easy.
So how do I encourage the kids? How do I encourage the kids? Like I have many kids at home, at our school, at my yoga class. And I want to encourage them, but I don't want to buy some plastic stuff. So what are the things like what things will boost them to do the work that I'm asking them to do?
I think it's important, you know, like, it depends on the nature of the child, what they enjoy, you know. When we want to develop positive behaviors, right? You want, you know, reward is a good way to do it. We all go to work because we get paid. That's our reward. So that's how, you know, we are trained to do things. But what you don't want to teach, especially when it's a very young child, is you don't want to attach a monetary value. It shouldn't be a fancy thing. It should be something meaningful. So if your child likes, you know, to play certain things, certain games they enjoy, you know, it can be like, you know, Play-Doh or something. So if you and the child can enjoy that moment, or like a trip to the ice cream parlor and, you know, having that. So what they enjoy, but what is meaningful, that doesn't require a lot of money, those are good ways to, like, you know, work as rewards. The other thing is, you want to know whether the child is really interested in these things. I have a lot of parents that force their children to do things that they absolutely hate. Of course, there are many activities that children are not going to look forward to doing it, but there are certain things that they may absolutely, you know, they can try, but if they absolutely have no interest, then they're not going to feel motivated to do it. So sometimes, you know, you have to, it may be a very young child, but you want to look into, is it something that they're interested in? Is there any other activity they are interested in? Because they're also going to feel more motivated and encouraged to, because you want encouragement to come from within too. You cannot encourage them to do something that they absolutely hate. Right, so getting them involved, let them have a little bit of say or choice in what activity it is. Like for example, Tamil school, I don't know how many kids look forward to going in, but I think a good way to do that is, you know, make it fun as much as possible. And I think the school does that. So you want to make that a fun thing, or give them a reward, or make them feel great when they get, you know, give them a lot of positive reinforcement. And, you know, sometimes not just saying good job, but identifying that this was hard, but you worked hard, you got that. So giving, we call it labeled praise in Solvanga. Labeled praise is not just saying like a random, like a good job. You want to identify what action they did and say, okay, you worked really hard and you got this. And, you know, like, so you label the behavior that the child showed, and tell them this was the behavior I really, you know, and you know, give them a praise for that behavior, so that way the child equates the action to the result, and that gives the encouragement.
And to add to that, Viji, all the kids look forward for your class.
Yeah.
So even without a reward, you're encouraging them.
As long as you understand the developmental stage of a child, like the chinna pasanga vandu sala things they find it, or sometimes, you know, again, I think you guys do a good job with that, like breaking it up, giving us short breaks. You know, a very young kid may not be able to sit down for 30 minutes straight. You know, like, so breaking it up, making it more fun, more interactive. So understanding the attention of a young child versus a 13-year-old versus a 10-year-old. And that's why school is set up in that way. You know, they'll have a circle time because they like to move and things like that. So catering to what they cannot and can do based on their attention, focus, interest. Yeah.
How long a teenager should sleep?
As much as
Is there any study?
Yeah. You know, the younger the child, the more sleep they need. You know, it depends on the teenager. So an older teen, maybe like you know, is almost like how much an adult would need. For most of us, adults and older teens, a minimum of at least 8 hours. Minimum would be 8 hours. But the younger the teen, you know, at least 10 hours or more. More sleep is not a bad thing at all. But what you don't want is, many of them will come and nap, and then they'll stay up till 1, and then they'll go back, and that's the, you know, that's not good at all. Because what happens is, your sleep is delayed, because the way sleep works is, you need that uninterrupted sleep, and then you go to like the deeper stages of sleep, delta wave sleep and things like that. So the deeper stages of sleep come many hours after you go to sleep, and that's the stage of sleep where you're forming memories, where you're registering what are the things that you learned during the day. So if you're sleeping in like pockets of time, you're never actually entering that restorative sleep phase. So they're sleeping, but then they'll be chronically tired.
Some kids, like they just tell the stories from the morning until evening what happened with mom or dad, like when they enter home. But some kids are not like that. So is that the way, like we can do something to do that? They can just openly say what's happening.
So you want to know how to like get your child to open up about what happened at school? Again, it depends on the nature of the child, right? Like some of us, when we come back from work, we want to be left alone, we don't want to talk. Some of us are like talking about the whole work day. So it depends on the nature, the character, the temperament of the child. But most kids do like to share what happened in school. So I think a good way to go about it is, most of us when we come back from a very crappy work day, we don't want to talk about work. So I think the first thing is to not pester them with the details the minute they walk into the house, right? So let them cool off or whatever. And then ask more open-ended questions, like, how was school? Or they may not say,
It's just good. That's it.
Right. Okay, or they shrug their shoulders. They're older, the teen, they probably won't even use words. So I think sometimes maybe talking about it later, maybe at dinner time, or asking like open-ended question. What was the best part of your day? Did you do anything interesting? Was there anything? So on a very questions where recently somebody also was talking about it, where they cannot answer with a yes or no, right? So did you do anything that was fun? Did you learn anything new? Did you learn anything that was exciting to you? Or open-ended question that might make them open up, but not asking as soon as they come home.
Full of time.
Or you can talk about your own day. So this is what happened. What about yours?
And what are the challenges they face in school or the outside world?
How much time you have?
The culture is very different, like when we were kids versus now. The world is changing. So, I always tell my parents a lot of times, like especially Indian parents, they feel like, oh, you guys have it so easy, everything is given to you on the plate. They feel like, what are you complaining about? But life is not easy for them either, right? Life was very simple for us. Of course, we didn't have a lot of the things that they had, but life was very simple for us. It's very complicated maneuvering the world that they live in, right? Especially for Indian kids, because they're balancing two different worlds and two different cultures. So it's very confusing for them, especially for kids that are more open-minded, finding that balance between, okay, this is home, this is, there's a lot of challenges, especially adolescents. One of the goals of adolescence is figuring out who you are, on one end, you're trying to break away from your family and, figuring out who you are. But at the same time, you're trying to fit in with your peer group. And our kids especially go back, there's not a lot of kids that look like them. There's not a lot of kids that have the values as them. So they do face a lot of challenges. So it depends. Some kids, balance it better than others, but it can be very confusing. So I would say the biggest challenges are fitting in with the peer group. There's a lot of emphasis on appearance. They see and hear a lot of things that is very different from the values and norms that we raise them with. So especially if you have a very a curious child who doesn't. There are lots of kids where they don't question things much. There are some kids they'll start questioning, why am I not allowed to do this? Why can't I do this? Especially when teenage, older adolescents, they start questioning about morals, values, God, future, their sexual orientation, sex identity, all those things. So it's very tough.
So when you said when they question their moral values or God God and the religion, and they wanted to explore themselves, should you allow them to explore themselves in relation to ethics and norms? Because you don't want to enforce something. Should you let them?
I would say yes, because, you know, I mean, there are children, but they are of their own selves, you know, they are individuals. I don't think anything comes out of forcing themselves to do something that we want them to do. I think it depends upon who you are as a parent, to your own temperament, your own character, what you were raised with. You know, I have parents that are strict vegetarians and their child wants to eat meat. You know, that doesn't mean you can say, yeah, go green light, do whatever you mean. Not in that manner. Instilling the values and letting them make that decision, I would, again, that might not apply for all children. I think I would recommend that, because you'd rather want the child to explore and figure out themselves. Because if they are forcefully made to do something because you want them to, then they might rebel. Or they might, you know, do things without your knowledge, and that may not be a right thing. So I think it's always, and again, it depends on the child too. You know, some children are more mature than others. So I would say have a conversation. It's not about, oh, you want to do this? Yeah, go ahead and do it. Not like that. You can always have an open dialogue. What are your questions? Or you can always explain to them why you think they shouldn't. Or why you might appreciate them not doing it, but let it be their decision too. I think they should have a say. It's their life.
So, not related to the older kids, but more on the younger kids. Does time out for naughty corners, all those does that affect them? Does that make them feel like they are being abandoned, or?
Oh, no. I think especially spanking and the time out, no, that's the way it works for those children. You cannot sit with them and advise them why they should and shouldn't do, because their attention is very short. Their reasoning power is very limited. That's why on the age it's okay to actually spank, because they respond more to pain, because they don't have the reasoning power, or they respond more to things being taken away and things like that. So you're creating a negative experience for them to understand that, okay, if I do this right, I may not need to experience this negative behavior.
I'll get to solution. Okay, some kids, they threaten the parents. Okay, about calling 911. I think in today's event we got some awareness on that. Kids, some kids they call it by names like abuse and harassment. So some parents really think they want to go back to India. Is the culture in India any different now?
I don't know if I'm the right person to answer about it, but it's definitely different from here, but it is not the world that we were raised. It's very much different from the time we were kids too. Yes, definitely. Again, நம்ம ஊர்ல போய் 4 சாப்பிட்டா யாரும் ஒன்றும் சொல்ல மாட்டாங்க. That may be the only advantage. But for a child who was born and raised here, you approve them for the sole reason that they're not listening to you, or you cannot control your child. Some kids may be okay with it, but a lot of times that completely destroys your relationship with your child. A lot of those children have utmost anger and hatred, because it's already very difficult maneuvering teenage. When you're completely going to approve them, and they have to get used to a new culture and everything, it's even more traumatizing for them.
Thank you.
கல்பனா, எனக்கு ஒரே ஒரு கொஸ்டின் இருக்கு. இப்போ பசங்க மிடில் ஸ்கூல் போறாங்க, ஹை ஸ்கூல் போறாங்க, பட் இந்த ஊர்ல நம்ம ஊர்ல வந்து we know this is the courses we need to do. Lot of parents வந்து வாலண்டியரிங் பண்ணணும், இவ்வளோ அவர்ஸ் தேவைப்படும், உங்கள் காலேஜில் இவ்வளோ ரெக்குவயர்மெண்ட்ஸ்ன்னு தெரியாமையே இருக்காங்க. ஸோ அந்த மாதிரி இருக்கிற பட்சத்தில் நமக்கு வந்து குழந்தைங்களுக்கு இந்த டைமில் இதெல்லாம் முடிச்சிருக்கணும் அப்படின்னு தெரிஞ்சுக்கிறதுக்கு இங்கே யாராவது பேசிக்காக காண்டாக்ட் பண்ண முடியுமா, அதர் தென் த கவுன்சிலர், ஸ்கூல் கவுன்சிலர்? Some counselors, they're not properly answering.
Talk to other students, like if you have friends with high schoolers or people that are going to college.
They're not opening up. Looks like, அவங்க தான் புதுசா அந்த கோர்ஸ்ல சேர்ந்துக்க மாதிரியும் நம்ம உடனே ஓடி போய் அந்த கோர்ஸை ஸ்டீல் பண்ணிக்கிற மாதிரியும்.
You need new friends. you probably need to look at other, I don't know what else to say. I would start out with ஸ்கூல் வெப்சைட்ல நிறைய இருக்கும்.
இருக்கு கல்பனா, பட் கவுன்சிலர் வந்து ஹை ஸ்கூல்ல ஒரே ஒரு கவுன்சிலர் தான் அலோவ் பண்றாங்க. இந்த எஸ் ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸா இவங்களுக்கு இவ்வளோதான். அந்த கவுன்சிலர் மாறிட்டாங்க. இப்போ புதுசாக வந்திருக்க கவுன்சிலர் வந்து ஷீஸ் நாட் ஓப்பனிங் அப்படின்னு வச்சுக்கிறீங்களேன். ஸோ நம்ம வேற ஏதாவது அந்த மாதிரி ஏதாவது குரூப் ஏதாவது கிரியேட் பண்ணி மான்சூன் ஏதாவது பண்ணணுமா, இல்லை ஷார்லெட்டில் இதெல்லாம் திஸ் இஸ் த பேசிக் திங், இல்லை ஆடல் கவுண்டியில் உங்களை மெக்லிங்பர்க் கவுண்டியில் இந்த மாதிரி இருக்கு.
I think the only, I don't know what you said, other than talking to other parents, maybe ones that are more open to sharing information, or going on the website or talking to somebody who is already in college, maybe when they don't see you as a competition or something, maybe they'll be a little bit more forthcoming in sharing information. I don't know if I've answered your question, but I know it's very low.
அதுதான் கேட்க வரேன். ஏன்னா I don't want to blame my friends, but the problem is they don't want to share a lot of things. புரியுதுங்களா? ஸோ அப்படின்னும் போது இப்போ நான் ஐம் லேர்னிங் எவ்ரி திங் ஃப்ரம் மை எல்டர் கிட். இப்போ என் பையன் என்னென்ன பண்ணலையோ இதெல்லாம் தேவைப்படுதுன்னு தெரிஞ்சுட்டு ஐம் டூயிங் வித் மை டாட்டர். பட் எல்லா டைம்லையும் லுக்ஸ் லைக் அவன் தான் மிஸ் பண்ணுறானோ அப்படின்றது எனக்கு ஒரு ஃபீலிங். நான் கேள்விப்பட்டிருக்கேன். அதெல்லாம் நீங்கள் தெளிவாக கேட்டுக்குங்க உங்கள் கவுன்சிலர்கிட்ட. என் பையனுக்கிட்ட கேட்டப்போ 10th இதெல்லாம் முடிச்சிருக்கணும்னு இருக்காங்க, எங்களுக்கு தெரியல, இப்போ ரொம்ப சிரமப்படுறான் அப்படிங்கிற மாதிரி சொல்கிறாங்க. ஸோ ஐ ஃபீல் வெரி கில்ட்டி. ஹீஸ் இன் 10th grade right now, but I want to make sure நான் இதையும் மிஸ் பண்ணலை.
Find out what, I mean, I think the best thing is for the child himself to do it, you know, and you want to find out why, you know, is he anxious, is he shy, you know.
He's very shy.
Sometimes you can maybe find him a mentor, like somebody like he, you know, one-on-one madri.
Except the counselor, there is any other choice, so I can go and ask. அவங்க ஸ்கூலில் அலாட் பண்ண கவுன்சிலர் தவிர அப்படின்றது என்னோட கொஸ்டின்.
Every school has a student services. Private mentor.
Oh, there are lots of people that offer, like, in fact, you can pay for those services.
I'm fine with that. It doesn't matter we're
Oh,
paying.
there are lots of people that do that.
See, அந்த மாதிரி இருந்ததுன்னா எனக்கு யூஸ்ஃபுல்லாக இருக்கும்.
I
அதுக்காக
have
தான்
two
கேட்குறேன்.
answers for you.
Yes.
One, there are a lot of coaching centers. Even if you're not taking classes with them, they'll tell you what is required by this grade. As Indian parents, we tend to push them a little more than what is the basic required. We're all looking for AP classes and things. But those kind of places will tell you what most other parents are doing, and they might help you get to the class.
Right.
One. And two, every school, other than the counselors, they have student services. If you don't want to talk to your counselor, each counselor has the same student goes through all the 4 years through the same counselor. My daughter's in her 12th grade. The counselor doesn't even know her name because she's never. The kids who are known to the counselors are the ones who get into trouble, not the kids who are quiet or who are just going about doing their own thing. So those kind of kids, like my daughter, if she doesn't go find out things by herself, she wouldn't know because nobody will come and tell you these things. And the reason that other parents won't tell you is because there are limited seats in every class.
Yes.
So they don't want to give that seat to you.
Yeah,
They
that's
want
the
their
thing.
kid. Yeah. So it's up to your child to have a circle of friends who keep talking. But like you said, if he's shy, then it's up to you to find like-minded parents.
I think the
who
best thing to do is
bounce
find
off
parents
ideas.
who've gone through it already.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the way.
பண்ணலாம்.
பண்ணலாம்.
And
We
you
do
think your
it.
child is competition.
High schoolers. At least.
Finding a friend that goes to a different school.
No, they won't allow, they won't do it. Even though they're in the different county, they're in the different county and different school, they're not.
Actually, we have a lot of questions for Dr. Kalpana. Why don't we have a WebEx session? WebEx session. Yeah, a lot of questions. ஒரு மாதிரி 9 o'clock ஆயிடுச்சு.
But big session you can't have pakoda, right? You got so much
அதுதான் இவங்க சொன்னாங்க. நீங்க சொன்னீங்களோ? I'm not a test. ரோகிணி சொன்னாங்க. நான் அதுதான் இது பண்ணிருக்கேன். ரோகிணிக்கு நான் மெசேஜ் பண்ணேன்.
All the effort you guys put in.
Thank you. You really took a lot of your time. Patiently answered all the questions.